the entire southeast development concept, which essentially occurred with the UGB expansion that has not been annexed into Bend yet. It's going to be completely done differently than the last UGB expansion, which a lot of people in this area did not like if you lived here back then. So who wants the mic? Damian, Allison?
Let Damian start off.
Thank you. All right, so good evening, everybody. Let me just move this a little bit further away. Good evening, everybody. I'm Damian Syrnyk. I'm a senior planner with the City of Bend's Growth Management Department. And joining me is my partner, Allison Platt.
Hi everyone, I'm Allison. I'm also a senior planner with the Growth Management Department.
And so we're here tonight to talk with you a project that we just kicked off for what's called the Southeast Area Plan. While the slide's getting booted up, this is a project related to the work we did a couple of years ago with the UGB expansion. It's going to involve an area that was included in the southeast, north of Knott, east of 15th, and then west of 27th.
Does anyone know what the UGB is? Stands for Urban Growth Boundary. Does everyone know what that is?
Thank you. So this is the area we're talking about here. It's outlined in red, and then on the ITSET map you see up on the left, you see where it is in relationship to the overall UGB. So this is a project that will really be implementing the council's direction for implementing our growth plan that we adopted in 2016. It has a number of elements that we'll talk about tonight. In just terms of kind of laying out, what we're going to be trying to accomplish here. This is an area that's 479 acres in size. It was brought inside the UGB so we can have additional land for housing, employment, and that includes areas not just for where people work, but also commercial services like retail and grocery stores. There's areas set aside for public facilities, and then existing right-of-way. One of the reasons we started with this area, or actually the council directed us to start with this area, is that Avion Water Company already has a lot of their infrastructure on the ground. We just completed the Southeast Interceptor, and just a couple of months ago, council adopted a new collection system public facility plan. So we know what sewer projects are going to be needed to serve this area. And we're coordinating our work on this plan with the work that Karen's heading up with our transportation system plan. This is an area that was brought in, so we'd have some additional land for housing, about 800 more units, not just single family, but also attached single family and multifamily. But it's also identified as an area that we could have for some additional employment. There's a capacity in this area for just about 2,200 jobs. That would include mixed employment and some light industrial land, for example. Next slide, please.
Are those long-term jobs or include construction jobs that may be a year and done?
All long-term.
Okay, thank you.
All long-term. So the area plan that we're going to be taking to council will be a document that will be adopted as an appendix to the city's existing comprehensive plan. It's going to include really the land use and development vision for the area. One of the things that we need to do with some of the colors you saw on that map is find final locations so that we can apply zoning, and then use that information to inform how we establish any needed additional water, sewer, and transportation infrastructure in the area. So we'll be working very closely with Tom's group, with engineering, Avion Water, and ODOT on this project. One of the also particular elements of this project is identifying infrastructure financing strategies so that we work with landowners on this project. One of the outcomes we're trying to achieve is making sure that once we're done, they understand how they can go forward with annexation on their own, what that means for their development plans, and then what responsibility they're going to have for any improvements to the kind of water sewer infrastructure and then the transportation infrastructure. It's also going to be a process that's going to allow us to look at any changes to the comp plan in terms of where we might move colors around, create buffers. With respect to the actual development code, we've not adopted any for the Southeast, but this is an opportunity to look at any changes that might better serve development in the area, but also be good for the neighborhoods. And then finally, the last piece is that we're going to be doing a transportation study specific to this area so that we coordinate this work and modeling with the work Karen's doing on the TSP. And that also gives us an opportunity to kind of look at the land uses in the area and see if Additional modeling may be necessary so they can see what that means for east-west travel, north-south, and also travel among the area itself. Particularly, I think one of the things that we heard during the TSB process was making sure that there was actually good bicycle pedestrian access to the schools in the area. Next slide.
Okay, so I'll be speaking about how you all can get involved in this project. So I'll kind of speak a little bit about the elements of the public outreach process that's kind of scoped for this project. So this project, we have recruited for members to sit on an advisory committee. It's going to be called the Southeast Area Plan Advisory Committee, or CPAC. So if you start hearing the acronym CPAC, now you're in the know. And this committee will meet 7 times kind of throughout the duration of the project, unless we get asked to do a few more, which sometimes happens in these projects. And the first committee meeting we're expecting to be on December 13th, located at the Nativity Lutheran Church. So council's currently in the process. We received applications, it's already closed, so unfortunately I couldn't advertise for you to apply, but we did ask for an Old Farm District Neighborhood Association member to serve on that committee. So there's a specific appointment for someone from the Old Farm District Neighborhood Association, as well as the Southeast Bend Neighborhood Association. And I know that we got a few applications from members of the community here, and council will be looking at those and appointing someone. We're expecting that the committee to be appointed by December 5th at the council meeting on December 5th. In addition to those 7 committee meetings, we'll be hosting 3 to 4 community workshops. We'll have those probably in this area of the city, and kind of open it up to the community to come and kind of discuss what do they want to see for the Southeast Bend. What is the vision for this area? This is kind of one of the first times the city's invested in a planning project in this area of town, so it's exciting. You get to kind of be a part of creating that vision. We really want to hear from local community members. There'll be 3 to 4 check-ins with the Planning Commission as well as the City Council. So we'll keep that up to date on our website, which I'll show you on the next slide. And there'll also be public hearings before we adopt the plan at the Planning Commission and City Council. So if you go to the next slide. This is the website that we have set up for this plan. It's bendoregon.gov/Southeast Area Plan. So you can visit that site, and there's a lot of information about the project. There's a frequently asked questions section. There's a map of the project area, and there's even an interactive project map. So if you actually want to click on the link, and show everyone that the link works, hopefully.
Maybe not.
I'm not signed into the.
I'm not sure we're connected
so
here.
Anyway, but you can click on the link, and there's an interactive map that you can even explore the project area. Some of the project area comes really close to the Old Farm Neighborhood Association, so there may be some property owners here who abut the project area directly. And it's also located right next to the 15th Street Ward Opportunity Area as well. And we're taking into consideration some of the anchor institutions that we now know will be in this area, like the high school and the Alpenglow Park. So, yeah, are there any questions?
Oh, one more thing real quick. So we did bring copies of the presentation at the table, all 4 slides. There's also the FAQs that have been printed out, along with my contact info and Allison's. And we can also hang out a little bit longer after your meeting's done too, if you have any questions.
And our website will have links to everybody that is presented this evening, as well as their contacts and the plans that they've all been showing everybody as well.
Yes, ma'am.
I may have missed this, but when do we think this is all gonna start being developed?
Oh, good question. I'm sorry we didn't address that. We were given 18 months from the council to get this work done. So after that, we'll be relying on landowners to come forward with their applications to annex and develop. So it could be another 3 years from now, 4 years from now, depending on timing and when they actually begin their work.
Another thing too to note is we're preparing a market analysis as part of this project, which will kind of give a sense of what type of development can we expect in this area, what will be attracted to this area, and what's the actual kind of timeline that we think that would happen. So, I mean, it could be anywhere from 4 to 10 years before anything even gets constructed. You know, it could be as soon as 3, it could be as late as 10. You know, it's really hard to predict development because it's not, the city doesn't develop anything, it's property owners and an individual, you know, private side that comes in and does development. So it's really hard for us to predict, but we can look at market factors to try to, you know, get a best guess.
But you're guessing that in 18 months, people will have the go-ahead to at least start whatever.
Yeah.
Correct.
And will that area be part of the old farm district, or are they gonna be their own neighborhood?
That's a good question. We don't know yet, but I'm gonna turn this over to Joshua really
So
quick.
that's to be determined. So I work with the neighborhood associations of the city, and that's actually an issue that the neighborhood associations have to figure out because they identify their boundaries and the city recognizes those. So we have to figure out what that process looks like. To Damian and Allison's point, with the expectation that 18 months for a plan, and then even if someone was ready to go right at 18 months, so that essentially gives the neighborhood associations 18 months to figure out
Okay.
where these annexed properties will go, further to Southeast Bend or Old Farm, or they'll split some of them, so they'll have to sort of sort that out.
Thanks, Joshua.
Other questions?
Yes, sir?
I just have a comment really for the people in city government that are here and to some extent the staff. Kind of the overriding concern I have here is that we don't have a master plan for transportation. And we're paving cow paths is what I feel we're doing. The city I come from had a master plan, and you could see that, you know, this street's gonna, you know, to use an analogy, Reed Market's gonna be 2 lanes each direction, Murphy Road's gonna be 2 lanes each direction, 2-lane overpass. You could see what it was gonna look like when it was all built out over a 10-year, 15-year period. I don't see that here, and that bothers me, and I think that's why we are where we're at. We just keep paving cow paths. So like the houses with the boulders in front of them, you know, why did those get built so close to the right-of-way? And the houses that are being built right now on the portion of just, what is it, east of Broster House towards the railroad tracks there, that,
Yeah, the big one.
those are, when I saw them building, I go, I know that the overpass is gonna go through here, why is it so close? So, I like what I hear today to some extent, but it bothers me too.
Okay, thank you.
Howdy, my name is John Skidmore, I'm Assistant City Manager. So, I think the challenge, especially in this area, is that we're trying to retrofit transportation, major transportation systems through areas that were developed when they were in the county in the 70s and 80s. And so, trying to find, I guess, logical east-west connections through 70s subdivisions that really weren't focused on block and grid systems. They were, cul-de-sacs were what the market wanted, cul-de-sacs and big lots. And so trying to weave really system-level transportation connections through that is difficult. So, but even during the boom of, 99 through 06, because of development standards, I think we already had the Murphy Road right-of-way in place going east from, I guess that's Broster House. And so the development community sees a market. They see that they can sell houses on 4,500 square foot lots. They put 12 to 1,800 square foot homes on them. They back up to what's going to be a major collector. The market bought it. And the city can only set the plate so much in terms of, let's try to identify where our major transportation and infrastructure corridors need to be. But I will say, especially, I'm happy that our council has provided funding for the Empire extension. We have Reed Market Road, and now we have Murphy. It would be great to have another few east-west connections through there, but we're not in the process of condemning land and constructed property and putting roads and sewers through them. We have a pretty bad history of condemnation. I think we'd like to avoid that moving forward. But yeah, it's difficult, and you do put relatively large transportation systems through existing neighborhoods. But I will say that Garrett and his crew and Tom's crew, the design elements try to accommodate that, and you can mitigate a lot, but you will still have a relatively large capacity street running between two neighborhoods. Unfortunately, that's just the reality of what we're working with.
So the thought is that the elbow is gonna be better planned, because it's being planned.
Yes. That's our
And
goal.
that there's a financing package put in place so that when we do annex it in, there's a roadmap for how the infrastructure will be upgraded to urban standards.
Yeah, because 27th isn't gonna handle it. I mean,
That's a
it's
mess,
already a
too.
mess anyway.
So that's what we will be looking at.
Sir, your question?
Well, as the gentleman raised the concern, the problem seems to be that new potentially annexed real estate land may be planned well, but what are the plans to get to it from the west side, and then for the people on the far east to commute back to the west? That issue doesn't seem to have been addressed appropriately, although the gentleman mentioned trying to backfeed the appropriate amount of access to the areas is becoming very difficult. Well, it seems like we're putting the cart before ahead of the horse, because that's going to be planned, but enough thought seems not to have been made how the connection between the existing areas of the new areas is going to take place. It's again being done piecemeal.
Can we
It's
just
a big-
mention that this is planned as a complete neighborhood, so that will hopefully reduce people traveling across our neighborhood to get to Fred Meyer. So the idea is that we'll have everything you need in that area. The grocery store, workplaces and things like that. So that's just one element. I mean, people are still gonna travel across town, but little things like that and being thoughtful in how we plan this can help mitigate some of that stuff.
Yeah, but people still have to work.
But wouldn't that have to be done before the roads are planned on being built? I mean, there was a map there that was outlined in red. But what we don't know is which sections of that land are going to be commercial, industrial,
That's what we're doing over the
residential.
next 18 months though.
Yeah.
So that,
So if I could,
yeah, if you wanna go back to the first slide.
so with the work we did on the UGB, we already identified areas for housing, which are in yellow, light yellow, brown, commercial in red, employment, industrial, in the light purple, purple and gray. We already know how many jobs and how many acres of land we have in this area. What we're doing with this work is refining the location. Some areas may change, some areas may move to other parts of the area through this project. And we're coordinating the transportation planning on this work with the work on the transportation system plan, so that the trips being generated from this area or that'll be attracted to this area, we'll have that data to coordinate with in terms of east-west travel and north-south travel. And that's why we're also coordinating with ODOT, so they know what that means for the intersection of 27th and Highway 20, but also the Baker Road interchange.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say, we do have a transportation system plan in place. I know Karen kind of brushed it off as, oh, it's old. We do have one, and we have looked at it and updated it over time. So we're not just going off of nothing. We've done a lot of work into the existing transportation system plan, and right now we're taking a really big look at overhauling it. And our department's also managing that project. I share an office with Karen, so we're constantly, our city staff is constantly communicating and collaborating on these projects, and they're both informing one or the other. We did a lot of transportation analysis for these expansion areas that we brought into the UGB to figure out, how many trips are these gonna be creating, and we're refining that even more as we dive deeper into this specific area. So I think that there was a lot of planning work that's been done to get to where we are today. We just didn't wanna talk about it all, because it's like, there's only so many slides you wanna present,
Yes.
I think what he's saying is, as long as we're doing this, is the planning and the transportation taking into account that you know, they're eventually going to need a 4-lane highway, streets, not just 100 feet, 80 to 100 feet, but wider, so that when the city does grow even bigger, we don't have houses built where we can't do that.
So, just as being part of one of your neighbors, I've been going to a lot of these transportation meetings for years now.
I can attest to that. David's always there.
And one of the things we have to remember is I think Bend is now the 4th fastest growing city in its size. So a lot of what has been going on is literally, you're right, it is the cart before the horse. Because these roads were originally put down and they were county roads. So when it comes to city planning, yes, the staff has been completely worked. They come up with something that's good for 15 years and it ends up only being good for 4 or 5. At the same time, city council has been trying to battle this, and council comes in and out. But ultimately, all of this has been market-driven, and it's very difficult to keep up with something because you can guess that a section of town is going to be popular, or another section of town is going to be popular, or even housing concepts change. And so one of the things I would like you to know that when it comes to, is it going to be a 4-lane road? Is it going to be a 2-lane road? One of the major concepts of urban transportation planning that I've seen in this, not just the United States, Europe, Asia, it's either supply-induced demand or demand-created supply. So one of the biggest comments personal comments, friend to friend. You can keep adding lanes and it never seems to decrease congestion. So now there's been issues of how to create new transportation concepts. So for instance, in the southeast side of town, if they can have grocery stores there, if they can have breweries there, if they can have some jobs there, the likelihood that someone's going to want to get in their car and drive to Redmond or to drive to the far west side, it's changing how urban planning has been going. So, and I'm not going to put this on staff. I've just read myself over and over and over, the concept of what urban cities are has changed in the last 60 years. You may like it, you may hate it, and that is why everybody who seems to be here, you all care, and that's great. But I mean, just from what I've seen in my short life, how neighborhoods have changed. It's truly amazing, and if you truly want to see what it's like, go look at some other random cities, just in some random state, and see what they're doing, and you'll be like, oh, wow, that's stupid, or wow, that's great. And all I can say is if you see that, get those examples. Go online and look to see what other places are doing, and if you like something they're doing, then I encourage you as a citizen, comment. But, make sure you do it correctly. You can go to the neighborhood association, you can go stand for the city council. There's now the Neighborhood Leadership Alliance Committee. I mean, there are ways to be a part of it, but make sure you just don't have concepts without looking to see what other places are doing and if they work or they don't work. And a lot of this is guesswork. I mean, they're talking about a plan for 2040. Imagine 20 years ago in Bend, what it was, 29,000 people?
Yeah, it was nice.
Completely, they didn't envision that, although. So I just want to remind everybody of that.
Well, I've got maps from 1972 where all of our neighborhoods here didn't exist.
Right.
Farmland.
But we also knew 25 years ago what the population was going to be like, and it was right on, and we still built 2-lane roads. So we have that information, and it's not being implemented the way you would think that it might.
Come on up.
Tom, in the back.
I not to repeat everything that's been said, but I mean, trying to do this planning, one, is difficult. If we decide to build 4-lane roads, the immediate challenge next to that is we go in front of council and the amount of money we have to ask for is astronomical. As it stands today, the amount of dollars we need to address kind of the immediate issues we have in transportation, you're talking way over 100 million. You're probably.
I've heard 4 to 5 times that.
Yes, in reality, you're probably up at 400 million. So, you know, you start thinking about that, and that money comes from all of you. That's where it comes from. There's no magic pot. There's no money coming from the federal government. There's nowhere else it comes from. And so we try to work with constrained budgets, build what we can, stretch it as far as we can to accommodate as many as we can. But if we want to build our way out of this, it's going to cost a lot more.
So then why do you keep moving the boundaries? Why
State
not
law.
keep it the way it was
It's the law.
and fix the roads
It's-
and the
it's
things
the law.
that need to be fixed?
We can't stop.
Why
So-
can't you
so
State
here's a
law.
Reality check. for-
State law
for
is
everybody.
private property.
In Oregon,
I mean, a state law can tell
In
a city
Oregon-
how big it can
excuse me,
be.
ma'am, in
It
Oregon,
has to be.
you cannot, as a city, you cannot choose to not grow. By state law, we're required to forecast growth for the next 20 years.
Well,
And
then
then,
put up,
hold on, and then we have to figure out how to accommodate that growth. It's not if, it's how. And so, in the 4th fastest growing city in the country, that's a tough game to keep up with, because we have roughly 10 people moving here every day, holidays, weekends. So, it's a challenge, and trying new concepts like mixed-use neighborhoods, complete neighborhoods, it can reduce your traffic impacts. If you think about Brookswood Boulevard, that entire corridor is surrounded by single-family residential neighborhoods. So everybody along that corridor has to get on Brookswood so they can get up to the shopping center, or down to the shopping center, or up to one, or up to their jobs, or down to the schools. By having the mixes of uses, you're dispersing trips, you're providing a block and grid system, people can walk, people can ride their bikes, it gives you more options. So it's not perfect. Planning, especially in a super fast growing town, it's a little bit of art, it's a little bit of science, but the fact of the matter is, we're not Boulder, Colorado. We can't just say we're only going to issue 400 building permits a year. We're required by law to accommodate all the people moving in.